My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. When we read the Gospel, we see that Jesus and the apostles spent a lot of time just traveling around, walking from one town to the next. And at one point, Luke says that Jesus set his goal on Jerusalem. His face was turned to Jerusalem, meaning his GPS coordinates had now been plugged in, and Jerusalem was his goal. And he, of course, knew what awaited him there, with all that rejection and the trial and the cross, but of course ending with the resurrection. But he was going for it because it was God's will. That was his destiny. He could not change routes or go to a quiet place and not be bothered. He was not simply interested in tourism. He had a goal, and his goal was Jerusalem. But he even sent out some messengers ahead of him to prepare the way, to prepare the ground, because some of the places that he would go to were pretty hostile territory, like the Samaritan countryside. And so today in the Gospel of the Mass, we see that he sends out as many as 72 disciples. And they must have been quite excited to have received this very special mission. It sounds amazing, to be appointed by Jesus for a special mission. But at the same time, it includes some pretty demanding requirements, like carrying no purse, no haversack, no sandals, don't carry an extra tunic, salute no one on the road. Basically, they were told to pack light without even a carry-on bag, right? And it's like the Lord didn't want them to be distracted with too many amenities. It would be, yes, a pretty rough trip with the demands that they had to explain the gospel really well. They had to open horizons about this new kingdom of God. And if it was all about making a pleasant trip, well, they would lose the focus. I mean, they went out there without much. It would kind of be being sent out into the city without a phone or no texting, no calls. Just focus on the mission. And it does kind of seem harsh, but I noticed another indication that the Lord included in those 72. He told them to go out 2 by 2, to go in pairs. And when I think about sending out in pairs, I imagine Jesus looking at this group of people that he had in front of him, these 72 guys, and he's looking at this group. Some of them were tall, short, big, small, all different types of people. And he would say, okay, you two there, you go here. That guy on the left and that guy on the right, you go together and you will form a small team. And he knew who would support each other the best. He knew perfectly well who would fit ideally with whom. You'd have one guy who's really good in logistics of travel, and he might be paired with another guy who's more maybe grandiose and daring visions of their mission, but together they would really click. So he sent them out like that, 2 by 2, a team. Now, Pope Gregory the Great commented on this fact in one of his homilies back from the 7th century. He says that Jesus sends out the disciples in pairs to signify that the twin precepts of charity are indispensable for the duty of Christian preaching. Those entrusted with this mission must always exemplify the love of God and the love of neighbor, and that twin precept of charity. And so, no doubt, each team would wake up early in the morning, they would pray, they would brainstorm about ways of dealing with the hostility that they encountered along the way. They would talk about the apostles. They would think about answers that they might give to objections. When Jews might talk to them about the law of Moses or what the prophets might have said. together they shared the same mission as the apostles. And they would support each other in their material needs and getting food, getting the laundry done, right? And probably other people also helped them. But also what we sense here is that there is a deep sense of urgency about going out. I mean, if they had focused too much on making the right sandwiches or getting the right shoes to wear, maybe they would have lacked the detachment that they needed, and they maybe would have lacked the daring that this mission required. It was it was an urgent mission because souls were at stake. Indeed, I would say the redemptive plan of the people of God would be placed in jeopardy if they didn't act now. And there was just no way that they could just muddle through this. So in these 2x2 teams, maybe one would be older and maybe wiser, the other one maybe lacking in prudence, but nevertheless, he'd be getting good on-the-job training. And I imagine married couples a bit like a team too in their family, with their good example and their teamwork as well. But the key is that Jesus didn't want any lone rangers, just off on their own. Because they would have to be accountable to each other. And they were really going to establish the foundation of new churches. So they really had to get it right. And so they were part of this marvelous story of the apostolate of the early church. And when we see a movie, there are always many people that are involved in making a movie. And we see that in the list of credits that zooms by at the end of a movie. Now imagine if there was a real movie of the life of Jesus, which would include the early church, the men and women, the priests who had converted, the pagans who had turned their life around, the healed paralytics, etc. Well, at the end of that movie, the movie of Jesus and the early church, well, you'd see credits. Maybe in the order of appearance, you'd see the apostles, but then you'd see these 72 disciples scroll by, and these 72 would be matched up in pairs. Right? And then you get the evangelists, the screenwriters, right, and others that are involved in the editing of this marvelous story. And it's wonderful to consider that you and I too are part of that movie of the life of Jesus. And our life itself is kind of like a movie too. And what part am I playing now in the 21st century in this movie of the life of Jesus and of the early church? Maybe we're in season 2000, episode 23. We too are like those 72 disciples that have been sent out. We're not just doing nice activities. We're really like apostles of Jesus Christ, and we have a role. And we too, in some way, will appear in that list of credits. Would that my life be that kind of epic, heroic drama of being an apostle? And one of the things I noticed was I was wondering, who are all these guys? Well, in these 72 disciples, as far as I can see, there's at least one, or a few others, but there's at least one that I noticed that appears later on in the Acts of the Apostles. He's a guy, his name is Joseph. He's apparently from Cyprus, and he was a very important figure there in the Acts of the Apostles. But what's interesting is that his nickname is Barnabas. So he was Joseph named Barnabas, and Barnabas means son of encouragement. I mean, I love the name Joseph. Joseph's an amazing name, it's a great name. But Barnabas means son of encouragement. Now that's really cool. So that meant he would have encouraged people against the poison of discouragement, of despair, of fear, a lot of pessimism. And he was one of those sent out in pairs with those other 72. And, well, his nickname served him very well because he had a solid reputation for encouraging others in the apostolate, helping them to reframe those challenges. In fact, we know that he had a powerful impact. We see this in the Acts of the Apostles and other places in the New Testament, that he knew how to encourage St. Paul and Mark at the crucial moments in their journey. And so he really helped pick them up, to give them the courage they needed. And so perhaps we too can be a little bit like Barnabas, son of encouragement, so that we could have that gift, so that we might be able to discern the gifts of others, to see their potential and help them to be maybe a little bit more confident about themselves, and especially if they're a little bit down or despondent. Husband and wife can do that too. If we could be son or daughter of encouragement. Do I notice what the others really need when I can see that they're a little bit negative or disheartened? Let's see if we can propagate that greater encouragement, that joy, to be like one of those 72 apostles sent out in pairs. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.